Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Book Talks with Miss Birch. Today we will be talking about um, Black History Month. I'm going to show you some movers and shakers that have shaped Black history. So, our first book was made into a movie. It is about a woman named Anne Atwater and her daughter's school. Um, which was segregated. That means that blacks and whites did not go to school together. Her daughter's school burned down, and so they were going to try to do integration in where they were located, North Carolina, and they were getting a lot of opposition. People didn't want them together, students together, black and white students together, and so they took her and put her on a committee with this man who happened to be the head of the local Ku Klux Klan, and they had to work together to come up with a solution for everyone to go to school together. So it's called Best of Enemies, The Best of Enemies, and it shows their struggle to have to get along. And it actually, she changed his point of view. So watch the trailer, tell me what you think. Don't mess with Ann Atwater. Now, second story. This book is called Fire from the Rock. It's actually historical fiction, but the history part is true because you see, this is about a story about the Little Rock Nine. Now, the Little Rock Nine were the first black students to go to high school that tried to integrate in Little Rock, Arkansas. Well, um, the governor disagreed, and he asked for the National Guard to come, which was actually they thought would be to help escort the students, but no, he actually wanted to keep them out and put the National Guard in front of the school so that the black students wouldn't be able to attend. Now, at that time, President Eisenhower was in office, and he had to send in the 101st Airborne, like real troops, to escort these students to where they would be allowed to go to class. They were mocked, they were called everything. They threw stuff at them, they harassed them, all kinds of there were white people out there, the Klansmen were there. And it was a hard year for them. But with their courage, they're the reason why one of the reasons why schools were integrated in the South. But Arkansas was one of the last states to integrate. So in this book, it tells their story, those Little Rock Nine, and what they lived through to try to go to school. So we have several copies of this, and we have copies of it under a different name. And it's all about the Little Rock Nine. Everyone needs to know about them. So Fire from the Rock. Now, before Rosa Parks, as you know, gave up her seat on the bus. But before her, 9 months before her, there was a girl who was a teenager, not a grown up, 15 years old, who now Rosa Parks, her not giving up her seat on the bus was planned. This girl's was not. This is Claudette Colvin, and she was the first person, first person not to give up her seat on the bus. Now, if you didn't know, um, in Montgomery, Alabama, and she was from there too. In Montgomery, Alabama, if a white person got on the bus, then if there wasn't a seat, then a black person had to get up and give them their seat. Now, it didn't matter if it was a white child, and an elderly black person. The elderly black person had to give up their seat for a 5-year-old white child. That's the way it was. But Claudette said, one day I just had enough. And that day, I felt like Sojourner Truth, who was a activist, and she felt like Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman were pushing her shoulder down, saying, don't get up today. Not today. And she was the first person arrested for boycotting the the bus 9 months before Rosa Parks. You need to hear her story. So watch the video. Go along with it. I have 3 copies of this book, by the way. It's great. Now, another one of my favorite stories. This is Loving versus Virginia. Now, in Loving versus Virginia, which was actually a court case, the Loving family, a white man and a black and Native American mixed woman, got married, and they had to go to Washington D.C. to do it because it was illegal in Virginia. So it tells the story of the Supreme Court case that won the right for interracial marriage back in the 50s. So great story, Loving versus Virginia. Now, another one of my favorite stories, because I'm always telling students, you know what you can do? You can do anything you put your mind to. Whatever you want to be in life, you can do it. And that's the truth. So this next story is called The Pack, and it's about 3 young men who were growing up in the ghettos. If I'm not mistaken, it's in Philadelphia. Anyway, these 3 young men, when they were young, teenagers, they made a pact. You know what? We're going to make it through school, and we're going to go to school, and we're all 3 going to become doctors. And guess what they did? They kept their pact. They became doctors. Now they're very successful. And this is their story of how they beat the streets. There's another version of this called We Beat the Streets. So either one of those are great to read. We have plenty of copies in our library. If you want to see what determination looks like, read the pack. And lastly, another one of my favorites, it's called Hidden Figures. This tells the story of Katherine Johnson. Katherine Johnson was a mathematician. She counted everything when she was little, and she ended up being the human calculator for NASA and the space flight program. She was so good at counting numbers that John Glenn would not go into orbit around the Earth until he had her calculate her how she would land. She would calculate a trajectory in which the rocket would come back into the Earth's atmosphere. If she calculated it wrong, they could burn up, or they would not. They would literally burn alive. But John Glenn trusted her figures, her math, over that of the big giant computer because this is so this tells Katherine Johnson's story and the women who helped. NASA was segregated. She was the first black man, woman, child, anybody allowed to work in NASA in an integrated situation. You will see an interview with her in the videos that I've provided. This is Hidden Figures. So that's it for this week. I'm going to add some video, some book recommendations. If you like any of these, I'm going to give plenty of more about plenty of other people that made differences in Black history. So just go to the Media Center's power page and check them out there, okay? Hope you have a great rest of the week and please stay warm. I'm freezing to death. Bye, guys.